A very good morning and thanks for clicking on to the Saturday edition of Vogan's European Outlook. It's the 22nd of January, and of course, the seemingly never ending area of high pressure continues to hold its ground over or near the UK. Interesting enough, we've got a very deep area of troughiness over the eastern portion of Europe, and this overall setup here has been presenting some pretty cool weather now across southern portions of the continent here, and you can see here representative of the overnight minimums this morning, close to -10 in Spain and through northern Italy, the Alps, and particularly down into the Balkan region here. So northern Greece, up into the Balkans, up into Romania, Moldova. There's a kind of cold pocket here situated in this region here. But certainly, generally speaking, you can see the overall idea when you look at the UK temperature profile here, and this is looking up towards northern Europe here as I speak here. You can see here the cold over Scandinavia, not atypical for this time of the year or any point during the winter time. You would expect the coolest temperatures in Europe to be in this general vicinity here. But if you notice here, look at the plus 10 Celsius minimum on the east coast of Iceland here. We've seen actually temperatures up as high as over 17 Celsius in recent times because of Fern effect here. We've had strong west southwesterly winds, and there've been mild winds crossing the island of Iceland and jacking up the temperature to some pretty remarkable midwinter temperature levels here. So that is rather interesting, and of course all this mild air getting driven across the Atlantic with that area of high pressure, keeping the UK and Ireland generally mild. These are the overnight minimums here across the British Isles during the overnight period. So +7 up in Altnahara, very mild indeed. Interesting contrast actually, the -4.4 at Boyne, and then of course down in the southwestern Scotland across Northern Ireland, the Republic, a mild morning, and the coolest temperatures really actually eastern Scotland this morning, but we've got some sub-zero lows over eastern portions of the UK. Of course, the other morning we had -7.6 at Benson in Oxfordshire, and of course that was a rather chilly morning. It's interesting actually also, by the way, because it was 11.9 Celsius at a Boyne yesterday afternoon, I believe, and it's obviously dropped down to -4.4 this morning. So quite a swing actually. Clear skies and lighter winds has allowed that contrast to occur. But you can see here this is the 500 millibar height anomaly chart here, and you can see what's going on here. This is off the ECMWF. We've got an elongated area of high pressure above normal heights extending almost from eastern North America right the way across to actually towards Scandinavia. And if you notice here, we've got a deep trough over the east coast of Greenland. And with this orientation, west to southwesterly winds, that's allowing the temperature to reach near record levels in parts of Iceland. And of course, you've got, of course, the trough digging deep into Greece and even into Turkey. It's been very chilly in Turkey as well, and that extends to the Middle East. We've seen scenes of snow in Aleppo and Syria, some of the camps where people are displaced at the moment, of course. Bitterly cold temperatures, close to -10 in some places. So extreme conditions for these folks that are living in tents at the moment in parts of Syria and adjacent areas here. But you can see here, this is the snow chart here, and as we go through it, now there's not an awful lot to talk about with regards to the UK. We will look at the UK shortly, but as we play through the loop, you can see here that the snow is very significant across Turkey. Now, of course, Turkey does have cold winters, but we've seen well below normal temperatures even in Turkey. In fact, about 5 days ago, we've seen a temperature close to -40 Celsius in the typical very cold spot of northeast Turkey near the city of Van, where you often see exceptional cold temperatures, but it has been significant. And you can see here as I play through the loop here in the early part of the new work week, the snow filling up into the Balkan region and into eastern portions of Europe here. Now, you don't see it as much actually on this chart. The ECMWF seems to have more significant snow associated with that here. And yeah, I was actually looking at the ECMWF, and it did show even more significant snow cover across this region of Europe here. So certainly very much a cool theme as we go forward, and it's all to do with the position of that incredibly persistent area of high pressure that's centered just to the west of the UK, but close enough to the UK that it continues to keep the truly cold air masses, i.e., Greenland air mass, polar, Arctic. It's always glancing blows that we're seeing here across the UK, and it's missing us and going into central and particularly eastern portions of Europe here as we go forward, allowing for a cold winter across southeastern portions of the continent here. Let's have a look at the 850 millibar temperatures here, because it does look, it gives you a better representation of where the core of the coldest air masses are actually going. And you can see if we get to the Europe Atlantic version here, yeah. So this is a good representation of the air masses itself. So this is the 5,000 foot level temperatures. Very cold air across eastern Canada. We're seeing minus 40s in parts of Quebec. And you can see here, of course, area of high pressure. The core of that centered over the Celtic Sea, as you can see here. Around the top of the area of high pressure, we've got winds coming in from the west-southwest, of course, keeping the temperature considerably milder than normal across the northern half of the British Isles, colder than normal across the southern portion of the British Isles, which is quite interesting. But you can see here, this is a core of cold coming right out of the Arctic, straight down into Greece and western Turkey, and a very, very chilly theme indeed. And as we play through the loop, you can see here that generally speaking, that area of high pressure kind of just keeps those air masses at bay across. You know, we're getting little intrusions into the northern half of the British Isles, but it's always getting deflected into the eastern portion of the continent here, which is quite frustrating. But as we go through the final, week or so of January, we are going to start to see the jet stream becoming stronger. It's going to strengthen. We are seeing evidence of the very strong stratospheric polar vortex coupling up with the tropospheric polar vortex. That then in turn increases the strength of the westerlies, and it may be enough to start to give that area of high pressure a bit of a kick, a shift out of the way. And in turn, that then would hopefully lead to better intrusions of colder air into the UK. May still be short-lived, but at least we can get something, a little bit more mobility in the weather pattern across the UK, because it has been born, hasn't it? There's no doubt about that. And then as we play through the loop, you can see here that we may, as we push towards the end of the month, start to see the area of high pressure shift enough that we start to open the door to something a little bit colder. Granted, it is temporary intrusions of cold air, but you can see here by the time we get to the 1st of February, we're back in the milder air once again, but then that's replaced by colder air once again as well. Areas of low pressure becoming a little bit more prevalent as well. Speaking of low pressure, let's have a look at the overview chart here, because you can get the overall idea that we're talking about here. Let's get back to the current setup. High pressure, of course, in control at the moment, positioned to the southern half of the British Isles, so we are getting that milder air into Scotland. And then as we play through the loop, you can see here the area of high pressure reluctant to shift, but the jet stream starts to strengthen, and we start to see the development of low pressure coming back into the UK pattern here once again. And with that, we of course have frontal systems and colder air behind those frontal systems. So we shall wait and see what happens here as we go forward. Finally, looking at the GFS stratospheric temperatures, and you can see here that we still have some very, very cold temperatures at 10 HPA over the northern hemisphere. Notice here, by the way, let's pause this for a wee second. Notice here that we've got the core of the polar vortex centered between Greenland, Scandinavia, down into the UK. What that's telling me is we're going to start to see more and more depths of low pressure, especially if you couple up the troposphere with the stratosphere. We're going to start to see a very active pattern developing here just in the north of the UK, I think, as we push into the month of February here. So we're going to start to see the low pressure train start to crank up, I think, as we go forward. Not good news if you want a negative Arctic North Atlantic oscillation, and probably not a negative Arctic oscillation either. But I think what we'll start to see is low pressure becoming stronger. We could start to see stormier times ahead as well as we go forward here. But as I continue to press through the loop, you see the warming over Siberia. That's been there for a while now. It makes a pretty good attempt at trying to push towards the North Pole, if you notice here. But then as we go later into the loop, we start to see that warmth dissipate and the vortex becoming stronger and stronger right over the pole. There is no indication of any sort of warming with this type of setup during the first week of February, according to the GFS here. But interesting enough, there is a bit of a contradiction in this, because if you look at the current GFS ensemble run of the Arctic Oscillation, that's quite interesting, isn't it? We see a big dip. Now, there is, of course, outliers. There is, in terms of it staying positive, but that is a very interesting and look a bit suspicious, if you ask me. That being said, however, the influence of the Tonga-Hunga underwater volcanic eruption that occurred, about 6 days ago, it did definitely have some sort of a release into the stratosphere. And of course, there is some kind of correlations to Krakatoa and Tambora and all, and these mega earth volcanic eruptions that, of course, had climatic influence on the Earth for about a year or so. I'm not going down the road that's what we're going to see, but it would still be interesting and worth keeping an eye on the lag effect between the influence of that volcanic eruption and any sort of influence on the stratosphere here. Could have the opposite effect. Maybe it'll strengthen it. I don't know. It's way beyond my understanding, but it certainly would be worth keeping a little bit of an eye on, I think, as we go forward here. So that's it for today. Hope you have a great weekend, and I'll be back probably on Monday with more. Bye for now.